Alright, so this is a video tutorial which is basically going to explain how to bake out the GI in Vray. Some of my classmates from Nomen have asked me to put together a quick tutorial demonstrating it, so I am going to do that now. So first I'm going to start off with showing how to quickly create your shelf button for the Vray render globals. I believe you should have received it from Stephen Delala's folder. So if not, you can go into his folder on the server at school and grab it there, or just email me. So started. So I already have a button. You can see it right here, Vray. If you want to create your own button, what you can do is open up your Vray render globals in like Notepad++, copy the contents, and then paste it in here. So that would be the first step. So if I did something similar, alright, so when you open up your Vray render globals in Notepad++, you should have all these lines of mel, which will basically set your render globals. So just copy it, paste it in here. In your case, you'll be copying it out of Notepad++, paste it into here, copy everything again, middle mouse, click and hold, and drag up to your shelf, and let go. And there you have it. There's your button. You can go now into the shelf editor. Let's see, scroll all the way down to your newest one, which is this one here. And you can just simplify all the naming conventions to make it easier to identify. So Vray render globals icon Vray, and well, let's do 2 there. Save shell. So over here you can see now it says Vray render 2, and the tooltip is Vray render globals. So that's how you would get your own button for your globals. Let me delete this out because I don't need it. And I can show you what it does really quickly. I think I have Vray loaded. My Vray is loaded. So inside your render settings, okay, just go enable Vray. The best tab you can see the changes occurring, it will be in the Vray tab. Okay, let's see. So basically, these are your current default settings when you first load Vray. Then when you click on the Vray button, you see immediately that this particular area in particular changed. The image sampler is now set to settings that would provide a good foundation to start off in, basically. In our Vray class at Nomen, we essentially use the script and tweak these settings. We pretty much maintain what the global settings are set for us. The threshold is the only part we would actually adjust, really. This is very high quality. I'd like to go maybe to 0.2, which is what I like for preview render. And for my final renders for homework submissions or for the final project, I would go down to a 0.01 usually. Let's see. Yeah, it will also set your indirect illumination settings as well. So that's what the Vray render globals do. Now I will demo really quickly how to bake out your Vray GIs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my homework scene from when I took the Vray class at Nomen. So this entire homework revolved around baking out your GI, which was the whole purpose of this. So let's get my scene loaded. That looks different from what I expected, so that's odd. There we go. Okay, so this is my composition camera. Really quickly, I'm going to explain a couple things real quick. Actually, this scene I did not model any of it. It's actually pre-modeled and provided by Nomen. So we basically just took this scene and lit it and baked out the GI from this. Baking out your GI is best for animations to prevent any sort of flickering artifacts in the animation when you play back. So what I have is a camera, and this camera, if you look down here, I actually have set animation keyframes, a very basic animation, it's only like 30 frames, so just over a second. But the purpose of this is to demo baking out the GI and making sure there's no flickering in the final animation. So let's get going. Let's see. Let me this thing to make sure that everything is right. So yeah, make sure you have your light in your scene, and then go to your render settings. If I forget anything, I'll just back up to it. Sorry in advance. Let's see. Make sure that start frame, end frame is set correctly to your camera animation. Make sure your image format is set to EXR, resolution to whatever resolution you want, and that's good for this tab. Let's see, next in my Vray tab, you want to check don't render final image under the GI section, because since we're baking out the lighting information right now, we don't need the renderer to actually, render everything from both of the GI bounces to the final image render. So we can take this out and the render will be faster. So check don't render final image. Let's see. This is assuming also that you are about to render your final project render. So in that case, make sure your threshold is set to a more production level value, like 0.01 is good. I believe that's everything I wanted to mention for this tab in particular. Yes, okay, so next will be indirect illumination tab. Go here. Now, okay, so you should have the radiance map as your primary bounce and light cache as your secondary bounce. With those two set, what I like to do is turn off my secondary bounce right now. And by default, when you're doing preview renders, your current preset for irradiance map should be set to like medium animation, and for your final render, you would do high animation. I like to set my subdivisions up. You would set it up anywhere above 200, so I just bring up to 250 and call it a day there. So I have high animation, 250 subdivision. Let's see. If you have been doing preview renders, make sure you hit the reset button down here. So all the data that's stored in memory right now will be reset back to zeros. Oh, I already baked out mine, so let me delete that out. So what you want to set this to is incremental add to current map. Okay. Once you have that set, what you need to do is analyze your animation real quick. So let me minimize that. So with the radiance map, you need to do at minimum 2 renders, okay, before you do your batch renders. So the first render will be at frame 1. Okay, so with those settings right now, in here, incremental add to current map, go ahead and do a render at frame 1, which will basically just show everything here. Drag your time slider all the way to the end of your animation. Do another render here, separate render. So, for example, I can just hit render. So my Vray frame buffer is going. So again, in this render, I'm not rendering the final image, and I turned off secondary bounce. So all this is rendering is only the irradiance map, the irradiance bounce information. So let that go. Probably should have set a lower resolution, but whatever. Go, go, go! Okay, well, anyway, still going. Anyway, the point is you want to do a full render all the way to completion for the first frame. Then you go to your final frame, so in my case it's frame 30, and render a second time. Okay? When that render completes, you want to actually scrub through your animation and find the location where new geometry is more prevalent in your scene, basically. So if you look at this scene right now, I have, you know, blades of grass here, you have the stairs in the background, you have some blades of grass here, you see this much of the front gate. So move through your animation, and somewhere at the very end, basically, you see some of the leaves on the tree, you see some more foliage on the bottom right corner, you'll see all this new foliage coming in on the left side, and your background will also display more geometry. So usually when you have this much new geometry coming in, you will actually go to the midground, in my case it's frame 15, and actually do a third render right there. So from at frame 15 in my case, render again. So that's three renders in total for my scene. The longer your animation, the more renders you'll probably want to do. That way Maya can interpolate the lighting information as new geometry comes into the scene. So that's 3 renders. After rendering 3 times, all that information will be stored inside your memory. So as you can see, that after doing that partial single render, I already have some data stored. Assuming that this is all my renders, so I'm done rendering. For your mode, change it. Click on save. You want to save out your information first. It doesn't really matter where, so I'm not really going to save it, but just type in the file name and just save it out. Once you have it saved out as a file on your hard drive, click on mode, select from file, then click on browse, and browse to that irradiance map file you saved out just now. Select it, it should appear in here, and you are essentially done with baking out your irradiance map, at least. Now let's bake out our secondary bounce, which is light cache. Let's make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm pretty sure I got everything. Number of passes, leave a default 8. Okay, subdivisions. Now, if I remember correctly, the subdivisions is the value you want to put in here is equal to or greater than the width of your resolution. So, in my case, right now, I am rendering at 960 by 540. The width is 960, so I want to have at least 1,000 subdivisions. The more dense your scene is in geometry, the higher you want your subdivisions. So I think in this case I brought it up to maybe 2,000 for my scene in particular. Let's see. Next, you want to go down. Make sure you check use camera path. Baking out the light cache is slightly different than the irradiance map. You will only be doing one render for the light cache. So check use camera path. Let's see, you can pretty much ignore the reconstruction parameters. Down to mode, again I have mine already. Select fly through. Okay. There's no reset button. Don't worry about that. Have it at fly through, and then really at any frame. It doesn't really matter what frame, but I like to bring it back to frame 1. So it doesn't matter really what frame you're on. Just go ahead and with those settings, do a render. So V-Ray render, click render. Okay. Once your render is complete, then you can click on save and save this out as a light cache file on your hard drive. So that'll be saved out. Then set your mode to from file and just browse for your light cache file. In my case, it was like light cache map dot whatever. Okay. So there you go. Now you have your irradiance map baked out to its own file. So it's now drawing the GI lighting from your hard drive file, and you have your light cache built out. Now what you need to remember to do is go back to your V-Ray tab and uncheck don't render final image. Okay. And with that done,